Sirens cut through the pre-dawn silence of Nashville. A fine October rain turned the streets into shiny mirrors, reflecting the flashing red and blue lights of police cars. The Riverbend apartment complex on the western edge of town was cordoned off. Neighbors, awakened by the noise, peered curiously out their windows. Detective Dexter Hardy parked his shabby sedan behind the police van. He reached for the worn leather briefcase he always took to crime scenes and stepped out into the drizzling rain. Dexter looked older in his 42 years, the deep wrinkles on his forehead and the gray in his dark hair giving away his years of work in homicide. "Good morning, if you can call it that," the patrolman said, checking Dexter's ID. "What do we got?" Hardy asked, stepping under the yellow tape. "Benjamin Ortiz, 34 years old, photographer. Discovered by a neighbor around 4:30 this morning. The neighbor had returned from the night shift and noticed the door to the apartment ajar." Dexter nodded and headed for the entryway. Third floor, apartment number 312. The hallway was filled with technicians and officers. He put on booties and latex gloves before entering the apartment. The corpse lay in the living room. Benjamin Ortiz was dressed in homemade pants and a t-shirt. An overturned cup of long cold coffee stood on the floor next to the couch. A dark stain spread across the light-colored carpet. 2 bullet wounds to the chest. Estimated time of death about 10 hours ago. "What do you think, Sylvia?" Dexter turned to the medical examiner who was examining the body. Dr. Sylvia Ramirez, a short woman with a commanding personality, looked up. 2 bullets, presumably .45 caliber, one in the heart, the other just above. Death was instantaneous. There was a slight pause between shots, judging by the location of the wounds. "Time of death? Between 9 o'clock and 11 p.m. I'll know more after the autopsy." Dexter walked around the room. The apartment looked neat, except for the signs of a struggle around where the body had been lying. An overturned coffee table, scattered magazines, photographs hung on the walls, abstract cityscapes, portraits of people with expressive emotions. "No sign of forced entry," one of the technicians reported. "Looks like he let the killer in. So he knew him," Dexter muttered. "Anything missing?" "Wallet's gone. Money too. Expensive camera and lenses are intact. Not a robbery," Dexter concluded. "Something personal." He went into the kitchen. There was an open laptop on the table. Next to it was a notebook filled with sketches and notes. Dexter put on his gloves and flipped through it. Notes about upcoming photo shoots, a list of clients, sketches of compositions. The bedroom was in perfect order, the bed neatly made. Dexter's gaze fell on the bedside table, where there was a framed photograph of Benjamin and some woman against the backdrop of an autumn park. They looked happy. Dexter returned to the living room where the tech team continued to gather evidence. "Did you find a weapon?" "No, the killer took it with him." "Any neighbors hear anything?" "Woman across the hall said she heard a muffled pop around 10 p.m., but thought it was something heavy falling." "A muffler?" "Maybe," Dexter nodded. "Where's the neighbor who found the body?" "He's in the hallway, giving his statement to Officer Parker." Dexter left the apartment. A young man with a gaunt face was sitting in a chair, answering the cop's questions. "Detective Hardy," Dexter introduced himself. "Did you find the body?" "Yes." The neighbor's voice shook. "I'm Marcus Diego. I got home from work around 4 in the morning, saw Ben's door ajar. At first I wanted to just close it, but then I thought I'd check to see if everything was okay. We were friends." "When was the last time you saw him?" "Yesterday afternoon. I left my shift around 3 o'clock. He came home. We said a few words. He seemed, normal, maybe a little tired." "He lived alone?" "Yeah, but he had a girlfriend. In fact, they broke up recently." Dexter pulled out a notebook. "Name?" Marcus hesitated. Vera Caldwell. She's a cop, a detective." Dexter froze, pen hovering over the notepad. "A cop?" "Yeah. Central Precinct, as far as I know." Dexter made a note and continued his questioning, but his mind was already preoccupied with this new information. He knew Vera Caldwell. Not intimately, but they'd crossed paths in meetings. Tall brunette with a cool, analytical mind. Excellent track record. Back in the apartment, Dexter walked over to the photograph in the bedroom. He now recognized the woman next to the victim, Vera Caldwell. They looked happy, but the photo, judging by the fall leaves, was taken at least a year ago. Vera Caldwell first saw Benjamin Ortiz at the opening of the Hidden Reality photo exhibit at the Nashville Art Gallery. That was exactly 2 years ago. She went there at the urging of a friend who argued that Vera needed to broaden her horizons and meet people outside the police station. Vera didn't like such events. The crowd of strangers, the pretentious conversations about art. But one photograph caught her eye, a black and white shot of a policewoman standing in the rain at a crime scene. The officer's face wasn't visible, just a silhouette, but there was a sense of fatigue and determination in her pose at the same time. "You like it?" She heard a voice behind her. Vera turned around and saw a man with a camera around his neck. He was tall, with expressive features and attentive eyes. "Yes," she replied. "Very accurately conveys the A feeling." "What kind of feeling?" he asked with interest. "Loneliness in the crowd, responsibility for other people's lives." Vera was silent for a moment. "I'm a policeman myself, so I guess I take it particularly keenly." A smile appeared on his face. "Benjamin Ortiz, that's my picture." "Vera Caldwell." She held out her hand. "Homicide detective." "Really?" There was genuine interest in his eyes. "I've been doing a series of photographs of emergency services, firefighters, paramedics, police. I was trying to capture that special state of mind when you're faced with critical situations every day. But you're still human." Vera marveled at his insight. "You've succeeded," she said sincerely, looking at the photograph again. "How do you understand it so well?" "I had a friend on the Memphis police force." "I did," he repeated with a touch of bitterness. "Died in the line of duty 3 years ago." They talked all evening. Benjamin talked about his travels, his projects, how he tried to show the invisible aspects of people's lives through photography. Vera, usually reserved with strangers, unexpectedly told him about her work, about how difficult it is sometimes to maintain emotional distance when investigating particularly serious crimes. As the exhibition was closing, he asked for her phone number. Vera hesitated for only a moment. "Detective Hardy?" The technician's voice brought Dexter back to reality. "We found something interesting." The technician held out a clear bag of evidence, the victim's smartphone. "Last call was at 9 p.m., lasted 2 minutes and 30 seconds. Who's it from?" Contact saved as Faith. Dexter felt his insides tighten. Detective Vera Caldwell. He had to report this to Lieutenant Fisher immediately. Grabbing his neighbor's phone, Dexter dialed Zoe Fisher's number. A brief conversation, an explanation of the situation. There was a heavy silence on the other end of the line. "I'll be right there," Fisher finally said. "Don't tell anyone about the Caldwell connection yet." Dexter went back to the apartment. In the victim's office, he found an entire wall devoted to photo projects. Prominent among them was a series of portraits of Vera, at work, in the park, at home. In some of them, she was smiling, a rare expression for the usually serious detective. Half an hour later, Lieutenant Fisher arrived, a short woman with short blonde hair and a tenacious gaze. Dexter briefed her on the case. "Are you sure this is the same Vera Caldwell?" Fisher asked, though it was clear from the look on her face that she already knew the answer. "Positive. There are photos. A neighbor confirmed it, and the last phone call before she died was from her." Fisher rubbed her temple. "This complicates the case. We need to tread carefully. We won't officially suspend her yet, but you'll lead the investigation, and no information to the press about the connection to the cop." "I need to talk to her," Dexter said. "I agree, but let's get more information first. What do we have besides the phone call?" "Not much so far. No sign of forced entry. Victim let the killer in. 2 bullets, presumably .45 caliber. No weapon found. According to a neighbor, Ortiz and Caldwell broke up recently." "Motive?" Fisher asked. "It's too early to tell. Could be personal. Doesn't look like a robbery or a random attack." Fisher nodded. "Good. Keep working here. I'll talk to my superiors and decide what to do about Caldwell. Keep me informed every step of the way." When Fisher left, Dexter went back to looking around the apartment. In the kitchen cabinet, he found 2 glasses and an unfinished bottle of wine. One of the glasses had lipstick on it, so Ortiz had a guest last night, probably Vera. By 6 a.m., the initial crime scene investigation was complete. Benjamin Ortiz's body had been taken to the morgue, and the techs had collected all the visible evidence. Dexter stood on the balcony of the apartment, looking out over the waking city. Dawn painted the sky a pinkish gray. It was going to be a complicated investigation. A murder involving a police officer always drew a lot of attention. And if the suspect was a cop himself, Dexter didn't even want to think about the consequences. His cell phone vibrated. A message from Fisher. "Caldwell will be at the station by 8. Talk to her first, delicately." Dexter sighed and took one last look around the crime scene. What had happened here last night? What had caused someone to shoot Benjamin Ortiz twice? And what role had Detective Vera Caldwell played in all of this? The answers to these questions were yet to be found. In the meantime, all he knew was that the man who had committed this murder knew what he was doing. He was cold-blooded and calculating, and probably wore a police badge. Nashville PD was buzzing like a beehive. Dexter Hardy walked in at 8 a.m. sharp, clutching a paper cup of strong coffee in his hand, his third that morning. After 4 hours at the crime scene, fatigue came in waves, but there was no time to rest. Vera Caldwell was already waiting in the interrogation room. Dexter watched her through the glass as she sat motionless, her back straight, a strand of dark hair tucked behind her ear. No nervousness, no obvious signs of stress. Professional stamina or cold calculation? Before entering, Dexter met Lieutenant Fisher in the hallway. "Technicians are still working on the evidence," Fisher reported. "Ballistics is checking the bullets. I've already put in a request for surveillance cameras in the area." "What about Caldwell's weapon?" "She's got her service pistol on her. .45 caliber, same as the slugs from Ortiz's body. After we talk, send it to forensics, but don't make too much noise." Dexter nodded and opened the door. Faith turned her head slightly. There was a question in her gray eyes. "Detective Caldwell," Dexter began, sitting down across from her. "Thank you for coming in so early." "What's going on, Hardy?" She sounded professionally interested, not a trace of alarm. Fisher said it was urgent, but she didn't explain why. Dexter switched on the recorder and called out the date, time, and persons present. "Do you know Benjamin Ortiz?" Faith didn't change her face, but her fingers clenched faintly. "Yes. We dated for about a year and a half. We broke up 3 weeks ago. I'm sorry to report, but tonight Benjamin Ortiz was murdered in his apartment." Vera froze. For a moment, her gaze unfocused, as if she were looking through Dexter. Then there was shock in her eyes. "Murdered?" Her voice shook. How did it happen?" 2 bullets to the chest, supposedly between 21 and 23 hours yesterday. Did you communicate with him yesterday?" Vera took a deep breath, trying to control her emotions. "Yes, I called him around 21 o'clock. The conversation lasted maybe 2 or 3 minutes." "What did they talk about?" "About his photo album. He still had some of my pictures and I asked for them back." "How'd that conversation go?" It was okay. He said he was busy, but he'd give it to me next week. No big deal." "Where were you last night between 21 and 23 o'clock? Her eyes got sharper. "Is this an interrogation, Hardy?" "Standard procedure. We interview anyone close to the victim." Vera leaned back in her chair. "I was at home. I watched a TV show, then I went to bed. You can check my streaming service login logs if you need to." "Can anyone verify that?" "I live alone, as you know." Dexter made a note in his notebook. "Tell us about your relationship with Ortiz. Why did you break up?" Vera was quiet. Mismatched schedules, different visions for the future, the usual story. She looked Dexter straight in the eye. "You don't think I had anything to do with this, do you?" "I'm gathering information, Vera. It's nothing personal." Dexter paused. "Did Benjamin have any enemies? Someone who might have wanted to harm him?" "I don't know. He never talked about trouble. The usual clients, exhibitions, magazine commissions." "Last question for now. Do you have your service weapon on you?" Her eyes narrowed. "Yeah, why do you need to know that?" "I'll need to check it. Standard procedure for expulsion." After a moment's hesitation, Vera drew her gun and placed it on the table. "Take care of it, Hardy. I'm used to it." Dexter carefully took the weapon, wrapped it in a bag, and turned off the recorder. "Lieutenant Fisher wants to talk to you. She's in her office." When Vera came out, Dexter immediately sent the gun to the ballistics lab with a note of urgency. After the morning briefing, where Fisher officially announced Vera's suspension pending the investigation, Dexter went to Benjamin's photography studio. The small space in Nashville's creative district was filled with equipment, props, and photographs. Benjamin's assistant, a young girl named Julia, opened the door with eyes red from tears. "I can't believe it," she repeated. "Ben was so alive." "When was the last time you saw him?" Dexter asked, looking around the studio. "The day before yesterday. We were working on a new series for Tennessee Life magazine. How was he acting? Was he worried about anything?" Julia shook her head. "No, although," she faltered, "he'd been a bit tense the last few weeks. After the breakup with Vera. What happened between them?" "I don't know exactly. Ben didn't like to talk about personal things, but he let it slip that she'd gotten a little too, controlling, checking his cell phone, asking about clients, sometimes showing up unexpectedly. He said he needed space." Dexter took down the statement and asked for a list of Benjamin's recent clients. One name flashed among the names that made him frown. Noah Bridges, a photo shoot 2 weeks ago. Faith and Benjamin had started dating a week after meeting at a trade show. At first, everything had been perfect. Intellectual conversations over wine, walks through fall Nashville, passionate nights. Benjamin showed her the world through his camera lens. She shared stories from police practice, carefully avoiding the details of current affairs. The first signs of her special relationship came about 3 months later. Benjamin was conducting a photo shoot with a local theater actress. "You're late," Vera remarked when he returned to her apartment after work. "I'm sorry. The shoot ran late. Sophie wanted some extra shots for her portfolio." "Sophie?" Vera raised an eyebrow. "Are you two on short notice?" "Just a client." Benjamin smiled. "Jealous?" "No," Vera answered quickly. "Just interested." But at night, when Benjamin was asleep, she checked his cell phone. No suspicious messages, just work arrangements. She felt both relieved and ashamed of her mistrust. 6 months later, they moved in together. Benjamin moved his things into her apartment, though he kept his studio. Faith felt an unaccustomed happiness. For the first time in years, she wasn't alone. For the first time, she let someone get that close. That vulnerability frightened her. After so many years of working with the worst of human nature, it was hard to trust. She began to discreetly monitor his schedule, to know where he was and with whom. "I thought you were working with a corporate client today," she said one day when Benjamin came home late. "Rescheduled for tomorrow," he replied in surprise. "And I was meeting a friend. How do you know my schedule?" "You told me in the morning," she lied easily. In fact, she was looking at his calendar in a shared cloud account. To be safe, she convinced herself. The world was a dangerous place, and she knew that better than most. Noah Bridges turned out to be a fragile blonde with dreamy eyes and a determined chin. They met at a cafe near the music studio where she worked as a sound engineer. "Detective Hardy?" She held out her hand. "Noah Bridges. Is it true about Ben?" "Unfortunately, yes, Miss Bridges. I'm sorry for your loss." Noah lowered her head, trying to hold back tears. "I can't believe it. Who would do such a thing?" "We're investigating." Dexter opened his notebook. "Were you close to Mr. Ortiz?" She looked up with hesitation in her eyes. "We, started seeing each other 3 weeks ago, after he broke up with his girlfriend." "Vera Caldwell?" "Yeah. You know her?" "She's a cop. So am I." Noah was visibly tense. Does she know about me?" "She might. Why are you asking?" Noah clutched her coffee cup nervously. Strange things had been happening the last 2 weeks. Anonymous calls in the middle of the night, feeling like I'm being followed. I even saw her car outside my house once. At least, that's what it looked like to me. "Are you sure?" "No. Maybe I'm paranoid. But Ben," her voice shook. "Ben said she was very possessive, that she wouldn't just let him go. Was he afraid of her?" "I don't know about afraid. More like fear. He said we should be careful, keep the relationship private." Dexter took notes and asked a few more questions about Benjamin's last days. According to Noah, they saw each other the day before yesterday, and he didn't mention any problems or threats. "Last question, Miss Bridges. Where were you last night between 21 and 23 o'clock? "At work. We were recording a new country band album. There were about 10 witnesses there." Dexter nodded, thanked her, and left his card. "If you remember anything else or see anything suspicious, call any time." On his way out of the cafe, He got a message from the ballistics lab. Caldwell's gun hasn't been fired recently. There are no powder residue, soot, or other signs of use. However, the bullets from the victim's body are consistent with the caliber and type of police service weapon. Dexter frowned. If Vera had killed Benjamin, it clearly hadn't been with her service weapon. An experienced police officer might well have had access to a different gun. Meanwhile, Lieutenant Fisher was conducting her own investigation. After a long conversation with Vera, she had requested surveillance footage from the security cameras around Benjamin's house. While the techs processed the footage, she studied Caldwell's personnel file. Impeccable career, high clearance rate, several distinguished service awards, psych profile, stable, reserved, analytical mind, the perfect detective. Fisher had known Vera for 6 years, since she'd been a lieutenant herself. She'd always appreciated her professionalism and dedication to her work. But was it the whole person or just the facade? The phone rang. The tech department reported that the cameras outside Benjamin's house didn't show Vera on the evening of the murder. However, one of the cameras recorded a hooded man entering the building at about 21:30. It was impossible to make out a face. Fisher rubbed her temples. If Faith is innocent, we need to find the real killer as soon as possible. If guilty, this case could undermine police credibility for years to come. Back at the station, Dexter found Vera in the common room. Despite her suspension, she was studying other case files. "Shouldn't you be home?" he asked. "Officially, I'm on vacation, not suspended," she replied without a smile. "Is the investigation progressing?" "Working," Dexter replied evasively. "I could help. I knew Ben better than anyone." "That's why you're suspended. Conflict of interest." Faith shrugged. "Whatever you say. But if you need information on Ben, you know where to find me." Dexter went to his office and laid out the case files. Something about Vera's demeanor bothered him. Too calm for someone who'd lost someone close to her. Too interested in the investigation. By late afternoon, the autopsy results came back. Benjamin Ortiz died instantly from a bullet wound to the heart. The second bullet hit his lung. A few seconds elapsed between shots. Enough time to make sure the first bullet hit its target. No unusual substances in the blood, just traces of alcohol, a glass of wine before death. The murder was committed at close range, no more than 2 meters. Dexter went through the crime scene photos, overturned table, scattered items, signs of a struggle or staged. An experienced cop would know how to give the impression of a victim's resistance. There was a knock on the door. Lieutenant Fisher. "News from Tech," she said as she closed the door behind her. Checked Vera's streaming service login logs. On the night of the murder, her account was indeed active from 20 to 23:30, watching a TV show just like she said. "That doesn't prove anything. She could have turned on the show and left." "I know, but just in case, her cell phone was home all night too, according to the geolocation data. Which is easy to fake if you know how," Dexter pointed out. Fisher sighed. "I don't want to believe she's capable of that." "Neither do I, but we have to follow the facts." Dexter showed the tapes of the conversation with Noah. Benjamin started a new relationship right after he broke up with Vera, and according to Miss Bridges, Vera was following them. "A motive of jealousy?" Fisher shook her head. Too trite for such a brilliant detective. "Passion makes people predictable," Dexter countered. "Even the smart ones." He went back to his notes. Something about Vera's statement didn't add up. She said she'd called Benjamin about her photos. But according to Noah, all personal items had been returned immediately after the breakup. Benjamin wanted a clean break. Dexter decided to verify this information. He called Benjamin's neighbor. "Mr. Diego, do you remember if Benjamin returned any items to his ex-girlfriend after their breakup?" "Yes," Marcus answered. "About 3 weeks ago. I helped him carry the boxes to his car. He said he was returning all her stuff." "And the pictures? Did he mention any photos that needed to be returned?" "No, but there were some albums or folders I don't remember exactly." Dexter wrote down the statement and said goodbye. So, the first apparent discrepancy in Vera's story. Why would she call Benjamin about photos that had probably already been returned? He looked at the victim's cell phone call printout. The last call from Vera had lasted 2 minutes and 30 seconds. Too long for a brief conversation about returning things. What had they really talked about? By late afternoon, Dexter had formed a tentative picture. Vera Caldwell might not have gotten over the breakup, She was keeping tabs on Benjamin and Noah, possibly trying to intimidate the girl. The call before the murder could have been an attempt to meet. If Benjamin let her into his apartment, he wasn't afraid, didn't expect an attack. But the big question remained unanswered. If Vera really did kill Benjamin, where were the guns? And how had she secured her alibi? Dexter rubbed his tired eyes. Tomorrow he would need to talk to Vera again, this time with specific questions about the inconsistencies in her testimony. Lieutenant Fisher stayed late at the station. She was torn by conflicting feelings. On the one hand, her duty to the law and society. On the other, 6 years of working with Vera, trust, professional respect. Could it be that the person who solved dozens of the most complicated murders had become a murderer herself? And if so, how carefully she covered her tracks. The experienced detective knew all the techniques of forensics, all the methods of investigation. A phone call interrupted her musings. It was the lab. Lieutenant Fisher? We got some interesting results on the Ortiz case. 2 prints were found on the glasses in the victim's apartment, Ortiz's and another woman's. But it's not Vera Caldwell. We ran it against the database. No match. Fisher was both relieved and perplexed. Check Noah Bridges' prints. Maybe she was there tonight. Already did. It's not a match either. So we have an unknown woman who was with Benjamin shortly before the murder. Fisher's thinking. Keep working. I want to know all the results as soon as possible. After hanging up, Fisher decided to talk to Noah Bridges herself. Maybe there's something she's not telling us, or knows about other women in Benjamin's life. The case was getting more and more complicated. If Vera was innocent, who killed Benjamin Ortiz? And what is the role of the unknown woman whose fingerprints were left on the glass? On the 3rd day of the investigation, Dexter Hardy received permission to search Vera Caldwell's apartment. Lieutenant Fisher had long hesitated, but the new evidence left no choice. Technicians found microscopic fibers from a rare type of glove at the crime scene, special tactical gloves used by police snipers, and Vera's personnel file showed that she had taken sniper training 5 years ago. Vera's apartment looked spotless. Not a speck of dust, not a single thing out of place. Minimalist interior, predominance of gray and white tones. Not a single personal photograph, just a few abstract paintings. Looks like a hotel room, not a living space, one of the technicians remarked. Dexter looked around methodically. The living room was unremarkable. The bedroom had a neatly made bed and a dresser with perfectly folded clothes. In the kitchen, a minimum of dishes, everything washed and arranged with perfect symmetry. The study was the most interesting. A desk with a computer, a closet with professional literature. At first glance, nothing unusual for a police detective. But Dexter noticed the safe in the corner of the room. "We need to open it," he told the technician. He had a warrant. While the technician worked on the safe, Dexter studied Vera's computer. Standard folders, work documents. But among the recently used programs was a data wiping utility. Vera was wiping her activity before her computer was seized. "The safe was open, Detective," the technician reported. Inside was a second pistol, the same .45 caliber as the service weapon, but without the serial number. Next to it was a box of ammunition and a silencer. "Send it to the lab immediately," Dexter ordered. Priority 1. Deeper in the safe, he found a folder of photographs. Not the usual family photos, but ones taken with a hidden camera. They showed Benjamin Ortiz in various places, leaving the studio, having lunch in a cafe, walking in the park. Many of the photos showed him with Noah Bridges. The dates on the back indicated that the surveillance began immediately after the breakup and continued until the day of the murder. "God," Dexter whispered. She was following him. Beneath the stack of photos was a small leather-bound notebook. Vera's handwriting was neat, with heavy pressure. Records of times, places, people Benjamin had met. The last entry was dated the day of the murder. 21 hours. Conversation. Last chance. Dexter photographed the finds and sent the images to Fisher with a short message. "Need an arrest warrant. Immediately." 3 weeks ago, Vera came home earlier than usual. The serial burglar case was closed, the perpetrator arrested. She wanted to celebrate with Benjamin, bought a bottle of his favorite wine, and ordered dinner from an Italian restaurant. Upon entering the apartment, she immediately realized something was wrong. Benjamin was sitting in the living room with a determined expression on his face. A packed bag stood next to him. "What's going on?" Vera asked, setting the bags aside. "We need to talk," he said without looking her in the eye. "About what?" "I'm leaving, Vera. This isn't working." She froze, trying to comprehend his words. "What do you mean? Yesterday everything was fine." "No, it wasn't." He finally looked at her. "It hasn't been okay for a long time. I just didn't want to admit it. If it's because of my schedule, It's not about the schedule." Benjamin stood up. "It's that I can't breathe. You control my every move, checking my phone when you think I can't see, questioning my clients, even installing a tracker on my laptop. Yes, I've discovered it." Faith felt something clench inside. "I'm just worried. I want to make sure you're all right." "It's not concern, Vera. It's control. And it's unhealthy." He sighed. "At first I thought it was because of your job, an occupational deformity, but it's gotten worse, much worse." "I can change," she said with growing desperation. "We can work on this together." "I've tried. We went to counseling, remember? You went twice and you quit. Said he was incompetent." Benjamin shook his head. "I'm tired, Vera. I need someone who trusts me, who lets me be me." "I trust you." "No, you don't trust anyone. And the problem is, you don't even see how destructive that is." He picked up his bag and headed for the door. Faith felt panic rising inside. "You can't just walk away. We have plans, a future." "I'm sorry." He stopped at the door. "I'll come back for the rest of my stuff this weekend. I met someone. Nothing happened while we were together, but, I think you should know." Those words hit hardest. Faith froze, unable to utter a word. Benjamin walked out, closing the door quietly behind him. Only when the sound of his footsteps faded into the hallway did she allow herself to let her emotions out, smashing the wine bottle against the wall with a scream. The Nashville police station was unusually quiet. News of the search of Vera Caldwell's apartment had spread instantly. Colleagues conversed in whispers, casting glances toward Lieutenant Fisher's office, where an emergency meeting was in progress. "The evidence is incontrovertible," Dexter said, spreading photos and notes on his desk. "Covert surveillance, illegal weapons, signs of deliberate planning." Fisher studied the documents grimly. Did ballistics confirm it? Was the gun found the murder weapon? Not yet. Preliminary tests show a match in caliber and type of rifling, but we'll have to wait until tomorrow for final results. Nashville's chief of police, Robert Kane, a heavy-set man with a military bearing and an impenetrable expression, entered the office without knocking. "What the hell is going on here?" he demanded. "I'm getting a call from the mayor's office. Reporters are already hanging around the precinct." Fisher summarized the situation. Kane grew darker with every word. "It's a disaster," he said at last. "If it's confirmed that a police detective committed a premeditated murder, the public will not forgive us." "Sir, we have to follow procedure," Dexter said. "The evidence is strong, but—" "I don't need a lecture on procedure, Hardy." Kane cut him off. "I need complete certainty before we press charges against a police officer. You're the two best detectives in the department. Get to the bottom of this. And no leaks to the press." The computer lab was able to recover some of the files Vera deleted. Among them were personal notes she kept in an encrypted text document. Dexter read them, gradually building up a psychological profile of the woman he thought was just a co-worker. Same dream again. "I'm alone in an empty house, all the doors locked. I know he's there behind the wall, but I can't get through. I wake up in a cold sweat. The psychologist says it has to do with my childhood, with the way my father suddenly left. But I realize the true meaning. I'm not afraid of someone leaving. I'm afraid that I won't be able to prevent it." Another entry? "Ben said I need to trust people more, that not everyone is out to trick me or use me. He doesn't understand. He hasn't seen what I've seen. Doesn't know how quickly people stop being human when they think no one can see them. It's my job to see through them. How can I turn it off?" The notes grew more and more disturbing after the breakup. "Saw him with her today. They were laughing, so easy, like nothing had happened. Like our year and a half together meant nothing. I watched them for 3 hours. They went shopping, then to a cafe. He bought her that book I told him about a month ago. He never bought me books." The last entry, made on the day of the murder. "Today will decide everything. I'm going to give him one last chance. He has to realize he can't just cut me out of his life. He can't replace me with the first blonde he meets. We're meant to be together. If he doesn't understand, I'll help him understand. Vera had been sitting in the interrogation room for an hour. She'd been called in for more details, but she'd probably guessed the real reason. Dexter watched her through the one-way glass. She sat motionless, maintaining perfect posture. Only the barely perceptible tapping of her fingers on the table betrayed nervousness. "Ready?" Fisher asked, standing next to her. "Yeah. Give me an hour alone with her, no recording. It's a breach of protocol. If we put her on tape, she won't say anything. You know that." Fisher hesitated. 1 hour. Then I'll step in." Dexter entered the interrogation room carrying a folder of documents and sat down across from Vera. "Sorry about the wait," he said nonchalantly. "A lot of paperwork." "What's going on, Dex?" Vera looked at him directly, without a shadow of fear. "Why the circus? We searched your apartment this morning." He opened a folder and held out pictures of the gun we found. "Do you recognize it?" Vera looked at the pictures with no apparent reaction. "No, that's not mine." "How about these?" He laid out the surveillance photos of Benjamin and Noah. Anxiety flashed in Vera's eyes for a second, but she quickly controlled herself. "It's part of my investigation into another case. A coincidence." "Don't lie to me, Vera." Dexter slid the notebook over to her. "This is your handwriting. Your dates. Your schedule for stalking your ex-boyfriend." She didn't say anything. "Vera, ballistics has already confirmed that the gun we found is the murder weapon. We have video from the camera outside Benjamin's house. We I.D quote, DU despite the hoodie. It was a bluff. The ballistics results weren't in yet, and the man in the video couldn't be identified." But Dexter was hoping for a reaction. "You're lying," Vera said calmly. "If you had proof, I would have been arrested by now." Dexter changed tactics. "I read your notes, Vera. The ones you tried to delete from your computer. About your fears, about control, about what happened when you were a child." Her eyes narrowed. "You had no right. I understand you better than you think. Losing control is the worst thing that can happen to someone like you, and Benjamin took control away from you when he left, when he chose someone else." Vera folded her arms across her chest, a defensive gesture. "It's primitive psychological analysis. I expected more from you. What happened that evening, Vera? You called him, asked to see him. He let you in because he wasn't afraid. He didn't expect the woman he'd loved for a year and a half to do that." Benjamin Ortiz opened the door when he saw Vera through the peephole. She was standing in the hallway wearing a black coat, with a hood over her head. "Vera? What are you doing here?" "We discussed everything on the phone." "I need to talk in person, Ben, just 5 minutes." He hesitated, but then opened the door wider. "Okay, but just 5 minutes. I have a meeting soon." Vera entered the apartment, looked around at the familiar surroundings. How many evenings had they spent here together? "With her?" she asked. "You have a meeting with Noah?" Benjamin sighed. "Faith, we broke up. My personal life is none of your business anymore. You said nothing happened between you two while we were together. Were you lying?" "No, I wasn't cheating on you. But now I'm free to date whoever I want." Vera came closer. "You can't just replace me. What we had between us." "Vera, stop." Benjamin raised his hand. "I know you're following me. I know you're calling Noah and hanging up on me. This has to stop." "Did she tell you?" Faith felt rage boiling up inside. "Of course she ran to complain. She won't understand you the way I do. She understands the main thing, that people should trust each other." He looked her straight in the eye. "Vera, you need help. Professional help. This obsession, this need to control." "Don't you dare tell me I'm sick." Vera raised her voice. "I just love you. Is that a crime?" "It's not love, Vera, it's—" He didn't finish the sentence. The sound of the gunshot was muffled, like the clap of hands. Benjamin looked at his chest in surprise, then at Vera's face. Her hand didn't shake as she fired a second shot. He fell, knocking over the coffee table. Vera stood over him, looking at the prostrate body. No emotion, just a cold emptiness inside. She carefully wiped the gun clean, looked around the room, checked to see if she'd left any traces, then left as quietly as she'd come, hooded and shadowed by the cameras. "I didn't kill him," Vera said firmly. "Then how do you explain this?" Dexter opened his phone and turned on an audio recording. "Tonight will decide everything. I'm going to give him one last chance." Her voice, a diary entry that the technicians had reconstructed and voiced using speech synthesis software. Another bluff, but this time, an effective one. Faith turned pale. It's not proof, but the beginning of the road to it. Dexter leaned forward. "Faith, I know what happened. You didn't plan to kill him in the first place. You wanted to talk, convince him to come back. But he refused. Maybe he said something about Noah, about how happy he was with her. And you snapped." Faith was silent, staring at one point. "It was a mistake, an impulse, not premeditated murder. If you confess now, I'll testify in your favor. I'll say you cooperated, that you're remorseful." There was a minute of complete silence, then another. Dexter waited. He knew that sometimes silence was the most effective interrogation tool. Finally, Faith looked up at him. There were tears in her eyes, but her expression remained calm. "You think you understand, Dex? You think you've backed me into a corner?" Her voice was quiet but firm. "But you're wrong. I really was there that night. I did talk to him, but when I left, he was alive. Did someone come after you? I don't know. Maybe." She sighed. "I know how it sounds, but why would I lie now? You have the gun, my notes, a motive. If I wanted to lie, I could come up with a better alibi." An hour later, Fisher came into the room with an arrest warrant. Despite Vera's assurances, ballistics came back positive. The gun in her safe was the murder weapon. In addition, technicians found microscopic traces of Vera's DNA on it, despite a thorough cleaning. When her driver's license was read to her, Vera looked not at Fisher, but at Dexter. There was a challenge in her gaze, as if she were saying, "You don't know the whole truth yet." Vera Caldwell's trial was a sensation. A former police detective accused of murdering her ex-boyfriend. The public watched every day of the trial. The evidence was overwhelming. Weapons, surveillance tapes, psychological motive. Vera pleaded not guilty. Even in the face of a life sentence, she insisted she didn't kill Benjamin. Her lawyer put forward a theory of frame-up, but without specific suspects, that line of defense looked weak. The jury found her guilty. The judge sentenced her to 25 years in prison. Dexter was present when the verdict was announced. He watched Vera's face, trying to see even a shadow of remorse or confession. But she remained impenetrable until the end. As she was led away, she lingered beside him for a moment. "You're missing something important, Dex," she whispered. "One day you'll realize what really happened." Noah Bridges moved out of Nashville a month after the trial. She said she couldn't stay in a city where everything reminded her of the tragedy. Dexter continued to work on other cases, but thoughts of the Vera Caldwell case never left him. Sometimes at night he went through the files trying to find what he had missed, but the evidence was irrefutable. Still, something kept him on his toes. A small detail that eluded his grasp. Dexter knew that one day he would realize what Faith was talking about in her last words, and then maybe the real truth would finally come out.